They use 40% of the world's energy, emit 50% of its greenhouse gases. They are not the cars we drive. They are the buildings where we work, live, and grow. Buildings designed with an unconscious disregard for nature. Adopting sustainable alternatives is not only a matter of progress, it's a matter of survival. Design E squared, the economies of being environmentally conscious. For the majority of the world's population, what does green design mean? Is it just a luxury, unattainable and elitist? Or can smart design work for the greater good? Can it strengthen communities, allow for health care, help provide sufficient food and adequate water supplies? Should design, after all, have a greater purpose?
Right now there's a split in the design profession, and it's the idea that design is about aesthetics and the idea that design can be about ethics.
For a whole school of architects, there's a social mission that has to deal with people in difficult circumstances, people in the developing world. This is the sort of architectural equivalent of Doctors Without Borders.
In the end, it's not so important what we think, because that just takes place, between your temples, right? What really does matter, however, is what it is that we can figure out that we can do together.
If you think about 1 in 7 people are currently in what we call inadequate housing, in informal settlements, slums, refugees, internally displaced camps. 1 in 7 people in the world. In 30 years, it's going to be 1 in 3. So we have this new global baby boom happening that are the poorest of the poor. And that's going to affect the environment far more than driving a Hummer around. And I think, although it's important that the United States and the West show an example of what a sustainable world can look like, we also need to be proactive in the rest of the world.
What does it mean to be proactive? Is it about changing minds set in their ways? Or perhaps planting new seeds of socially sustainable design in more fertile grounds?
We got to be part of the visionaries that make the connection between ecological housing and sustaining their culture and their place in that community.
I tell my students the responsibility of an architect is to be inclusive, to include all things about this world, and that means all communities.
The future, the vision of the future you guys have, the community bought into. So that's good.
There's a sense among architects like Sergio that something very fundamental has been lost in the training of architects.
So there's a challenge. We have to think about the gray water cycle.
His idea, and it's important to emphasize this, that this is not unique to one person. It is a sort of, much in the style of the 60s, a kind of collective notion, and there are a lot of different manifestations of it, that students in particular need to get out into the world, the developing world, and they need to do hands-on projects.
Sergio Pallaroni has been involved with building sustainable, low-income housing for 20 years, recruiting hands, but more importantly, minds, in helping poor communities.
Sergio has created a way of working with communities and bringing together young designers to work alongside with that community to build. And that means that the buildings may not be sexy or glamorous or on the front cover of magazines, but there's a level of honesty in the buildings.
He's doing about 4 different things. Any one of them alone would make his practice remarkable. First, he's bringing design students into communities to build buildings. That just isn't done very often. There's only, a small number of architecture schools have programs like that. Secondly, he's doing it in underserved communities, so he's reinforcing that social responsibility among architects and architecture students to serve communities. thirdly, he's doing it in a sustainable way, so he's using local materials and not wasting energy or polluting. And fourthly, they're cool buildings. They look neat, and they actually are meaningful within the context of design being interesting and innovative.
Building sustainable communities. That's the basic thing we should be doing. And that's both a physical environmental issue and a cultural environmental issue.
The Yaqui Indians, a nomadic tribe who roam the north central and western deserts of Mexico, have gradually seen their lives diminished by the expanding ranches and farms of the region.
The Yaqui are, just interesting because they're in a sense one of Mexico's forgotten people. They survived all the way to the 20th century the way they did because they lived in a piece of land that nobody wanted. It was desert. They couldn't really even raise cattle here. The Yaqui are, well, in terms of economic terms, probably the poorest residents of North America. And their income is somewhere a little less than $600 a year, so it's very poor people. They need houses, and they need houses which are inexpensive and they can afford on under $1,000 a year.
And the Mexican government did respond, with thousands of low-income houses. Unfortunately, with no thought to the sustainability of the region's environment or its culture.
You just look at the streets and you think, did that person ever look at how the people live? I mean, would they live in the building they're designing for others? There's no humanity to the streets. Every single box is the same as the other, and you see people's efforts to make them individual, to make them their own. And yet, you see how much they're working against. The boxes are unecological. They're made of concrete block, they heat up, they don't treat the water, they have all sorts of drainage problems. They have the wrong type of solar exposure, they have no natural ventilation, people walk outside and it's a no man's land. And then within that no man's land, they're trying to create a community. So that's why the houses that we're attempting to make are houses that are truly economical and economical in the long term. So their heating costs, cooling costs, maintenance costs, are cheap. So in 10 years, the family's not driven out by the cost of maintaining the house.
There are still close to 20,000 homes needed. The Yaqui housing shortage united business leaders, residents, and politicians who together developed a microloan system enabling a lucky few for $5,000 to afford a home of their dreams.
Escuchamos historias de las familias que nunca pensamos que pudiéramos incidir en determinado problema, como problemas de salud, con familias que tenían niños con enfermedades crónicas respiratorias, porque vivían en una casa insalubre, fría, y en cuanto tienen una casa así, no nada más los niños se alivian, sino que la familia tiene dinero para invertir en otras cosas porque ya no gasta en medicamentos. Entonces, de alguna manera que no pensábamos, invertimos en esa familia también en su salud.
¿Está muy a gusto esta casa?
Feliz estoy aquí. Feliz estoy porque, pues ya, como quien dice de uno ya es.
¿Pero qué comodidades tiene esta casa que usted encuentra?
Yo, todo, pero sabe que más por los baños, porque aquí ya ve que no hay facilidades de los baños y todo eso. Y eso es lo que a mí me ponía mal, de que hacer la casa aquí, le decía Mónica y yo, pero los baños, y era lo que me ponía entorpecida, y ya me dijeron, no, porque va a ser con fosa y todo esto, y ya. Y le hicimos la fosa y ya los baños, pues ya no tenemos que tener baños de letrinas y eso.
This early prototype was designed and constructed using local materials such as river reeds, recycled boxes, and adobe.
Pues lo beneficia mucho porque los materiales que se están usando aquí son materiales que ellos tienen a la mano y que tienen usándose en la construcción muchos años, pero que la idea del comercialismo al que tenemos acceso a través de los medios hacen sentir a las familias que son materiales que hay que desechar para traer otros que le cuestan muchísimo a la tierra de fabricar. Y cuando esas familias ven que con esos mismos materiales se pueden construir casas más seguras, más durables y que son más adecuadas a su medio, entonces lo hacen como propio y se lo van a heredar a sus hijos y a sus vecinos, ¿no? Entonces estamos ayudándole muchísimo al medio ambiente.
The University of Texas students understood these important economic and cultural factors. Working directly with residents, they came up with 2 models. The first incorporates an open courtyard, a major part of the Yaqui life.
We have this space. It's been created by this one of the schemes in this, and it's an extraordinary space. It's such a simple move. You know, it's just a parting of 2 buildings. On one side, we have the bedrooms. On the other side, we have the bathroom and kitchen and small dining area. And we've created a kind of living room in the middle. And the center space is protected from radiation by this thatched roof, which is actually made from the rush bamboo, which is found in the riverbeds. The trusses are made from found material in the dump, from pallets for shipping to the United States. Here's a very simple building, $5,000, has exquisite light. And the light is being celebrated in the shared common room of the house. And the most complex, most beautiful piece of light is in the shared space where everybody can share it.